Okay, so Harry, most people know you as one of the heroes of January 6th. Now, let's be clear, you were one of the first people to testify before the January 6th committee. And now, on top of everything, you've written this great book about your experience. But all this time after the traumatic events, what is it that still affects you the most?
You know, Mike, good to be with you, man. I always love talking with you and chatting it up. I just like your authenticity, and I think that's one of the things that ties us together. But also, what ties us together is, I think, what is still unfinished business, and that is the fact that the former president has not been held accountable for his actions yet. Now, it's on the way, maybe, but it hasn't happened yet, and I feel like that's one of the main things. I don't necessarily say bring me closure, but it's still missing from that terrible day.
Yeah, look, I understand. I mean, you know, the book, and I started to go through it, called Standing My Ground. It's really, quite a great read. I know myself that I find myself sometimes when I'm having breakfast or I'm sitting in a restaurant, and I find myself almost transported out of where I am, and I go into this sort of tunnel vision of PTSD where I'm just not where I am, and I'm back in whether it's solitary confinement, or I find myself sometimes when I'm walking on the street, I almost feel like I'm back at Otisville when we would walk around the half-mile perimeter of the facility that we were allowed. It's a very weird thing, and I don't know why it happens. I thought it would sort of diminish in terms of the effect, but it really hasn't. Anything like this happening with you? Do you find yourself, tensing up in certain locations because you're still on the job?
Yeah. One of the things that, when I get around, and this not necessarily at work, but even in like my personal life, I go out with friends and we'll go out to a crowded sports bar or whatever. And, I get around people and I'm looking for the exit, or if somebody bumps me, I'm taken back to a place where I'm thinking that somebody's trying to hurt me or something like that. And, it could be the most innocent time. It doesn't have to be anything contentious, but just that still sticks with me, just the physical reaction that your body has.
Yeah, look, when I was reading a whole bunch of the reviews on it, and there was a couple of lines that really sort of stood out to me. They turn around and they say that the author, of course being you, lucidly dissects the elements of the Capitol Police and how they work. And he briefly discusses his youth in Maryland and his desire to play professional football. When physical limitations sidelined those aspirations, Dunn found his way to the Capitol Police in 2008, where he observed how impassioned protests demonstrated the power of democracy and freedom of expression. Like you, exactly like you, I believe in democracy. I believe in the freedom of expression. I have no issue with the demonstrators being outside the Capitol.
Right.
Protest, make noise. You want to wear your stupid, ugly red hats and carry your dumbass MAGA flags and Trump 2020 flags. I truly don't care. But I'll tell you what did offend me and continues to this very day to offend me is the reason that they stormed the Capitol. And it's something that I said when I testified before the House Oversight Committee, that if in fact Donald Trump loses the election, my biggest fear is that there will never be a peaceful transfer of power. And the whole concept of the peaceful transfer of power is the basic foundation of our democracy, and how we go from president to president to president to president. And we have done this 44 times successfully before Donald Trump ended up becoming president of the United States.
How would it be? How would you like to be one out of 44? Or, obviously some of them were doubled up, but, what a terrible company to be in. It just speaks to the narcissism and the all about meism that he is all about. It's sickening, man. And like you said, the peaceful transfer of power and the right to protest and the right to stake your cause. I've been in at the Capitol. We've been front line to front people who disagree with some of the things that I disagree with, and that's fine. We're not there to agree or disagree. We're out to peacefully state your piece. I mean, hell, there's the Ku Klux Klan is permitted to walk around and protest, or the Klan and rallies and stuff like that. They have that right. As disgusting and despicable as I think they are, they still have the right to do it peacefully. Once it turns into what we got on January 6th, then that it goes out the window. You have almost forfeited your right to protest because you're breaking the law.
It's so true. But, to finish the way that they discussed the review on this, you admitted that you have been both praised and viciously vilified. Could you imagine that there are people out there, whether you like Harry Dunn or you don't, whether you like Capitol Police or you don't, whether you were pro-Trump, pro-MAGA, and think that nothing that they did was wrong, there are still people who both praise you and viciously vilify you for openly rebuking the insurrectionists who tried to destroy the very lifeblood of this nation.
Yeah.
And then they say throughout this forcefully delivered book, and again, it's an absolute read, standing my ground. Your passion for true patriotism and the tenets of constitutional democracy resonate throughout the book, despite, of course, as we were just talking about, the emotional pain and the PTSD that it brought to you.
One of the things, I love this country, man. I fucking love this country. And, and I feel like I have to fight back even harder to steal the word patriot from the cowards who hijacked it. It's like you see somebody waving an American flag. All right, the first thing come to mind, oh, they're probably a Trump supporter. Like, how did this get associated with one individual, man? This country it's e pluribus unum, out of many, one. Like, we're supposed to have, it's a fucking melting pot. And I get so mad because I love this country, and these people, they make it seem like they're if we don't agree with their views, then we're traitors to the country. And it goes back to, and I'm not trying to get all historical but in my book, I talk about the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and how it was written, all men are created equal. But the people that they were talking to when they said all men are created were white men that owned land. Unless you were a white man that owned land, they weren't talking to you. If you were an immigrant, they weren't talking to you. If you were a woman, they weren't talking to you. If you were a black person, they weren't talking to you. If you were a white person that didn't own any land, you weren't the person that they were talking about in that all men are created equal. So it makes me go back and just think about how this always been a struggle and a fight for, not necessarily equality, but a sense of belonging. We've always had to fight. And I'm just saying the people that have been in the minority for the longest time. So it fires me up. So I definitely talk about this patriotism that I feel. This is my country just as much as anybody else's. So,
yeah, except the
sorry,
problem
man, I
is
get
that
all fired up, man. It's bullshit.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, it is. But the problem is that they believe that they own and run and control this country. Donald has given them that false sense of belief and that false sense of security. Look, nobody else that I could remember, and again, I was practicing law since 1992. I have never in my life seen anyone, especially as a defendant. Nobody said it better the other day than this guy Michael Popak, and also Neil Katyal on television said it as well, that you're sitting as a defendant beneath Judge Engoron, right, who's sitting up on the dais at the desk, and you have witnesses that are sitting higher than you on the stand. And the second you go out, what do you do outside the doors? And there's a gaggle of press that's there. The first thing you would do is you attack the judge, you attack the AG, you attack witnesses, you attack everybody, and you say some of the most vile, inflammatory, defamatory, witness tampering, obstruction of justice statements. I want to just give you, first thing this morning, the Mandarin Mussolini couldn't help himself. Those little chubby fingers of his started going. And you got the all caps, the small caps. And just for effect of my listeners, got to hear this shit. This is from his Untruth Social post. This rigged trial brought by the racist New York State AG Letitia James before Trump and hating judge, now he's a developer, before Trump and developer-hating judge Arthur Engoron, which should have never been brought in that the so-called star witness, sleazebag lawyer for many people, Michael Cohen, admitted last week on the stand that he lied, and also that your favorite president, Donald J. Trump, or anyone from the Trump organization, all in capitals, never told him to inflate values on financial statements, the opposite of what he told the AG in order to get this hoax started. Now, it goes on. Actually, I'm going to finish it. Therefore, on that fact alone, this fake case should be dismissed. Additionally, however, the financial statements values are conservative, in brackets, low, all caps, exclamation mark, close bracket. Mar-a-Lago is worth much more than $18 million. There is a 100% disclaimer clause on the first page of the statements. The banks and insurance companies were paid in full, no defaults. That's also a lie. They all made money, and there is no victim, in brackets, except me. Leave my children alone, Engoron. You are a disgrace to the legal profession. Now, there's so much shit to unpack here. First of all, let me start by saying, in the second word in this rigged trial, it is not a rigged trial. Okay? Let me be very, very clear about that. Brought by the racist New York AG, Letitia James is not a racist. All right?
Yeah.
Before developer-hating Judge Arthur Engoron. Engoron doesn't hate Donald Trump. He is a judge, and he is acting judiciously. I sat for 2 days on the witness stand, and there are things that I expected that he was going to allow, which he did not, that benefited Trump. And then there are things that he did allow that, of course, were detrimental to Trump's case. Then, of course, I'm not even going to talk about me being a sleazebag lawyer. But here's the part that bothers me the most about what he's doing. This is witness tampering to the worst extreme. Who in their right mind, because the second that he put this out, the hate emails, the tweets, the texts, the phone calls, they all start coming. And he knows exactly what he's doing. The funny thing is what he fails to understand is that I have been subpoenaed to appear to all of these cases. Right? And he knew that because I went and I spoke to him about it in the Oval Office. Yeah. When I first decided not to testify, I said, thank you for the invitation, but no thank you. And that was at the suggestion of both Sean Hannity as well as Jay Sekulow, who ultimately became Trump's attorney for a while. Number one, I never admitted on the stand that I lied. I did state that I lied to Judge William H. Pauley III, who is the Southern District of New York judge that sentenced me, that dealt with this case of mine, this one-page information plea, What I lied to him about was that I committed tax evasion and misrepresentation to a bank.
Yeah.
And again, for my listeners, just to be crystal clear, because I'll say this a million times, despite the fact you've all probably heard it at least 500,000 times. The first time we ever spoke to the Southern District of New York, Nick Roos, Tom McKay, Andrea Griswold, Robert Kazami, the first time was on a Friday night, the 17th of August at 5:30. I'm sorry, the 17th, that's a Thursday, at 5:30. And then what they did is they gave us, it was, I think either August, maybe the 16th of August. And what they did is they gave my lawyer till the 17th, that Friday, they gave him until 5:30 p.m. to come and meet with them. But I wasn't invited to that meeting, which is unheard of. The first time that we were having, at which point he calls me, my lawyer calls me at 5:30 p.m. to tell me that I have to go in and plead guilty on Monday at 9 a.m., 24 hours later, over a weekend, or they're filing an 80-page indictment that's going to include my wife.
Yeesh.
All right. And so as I was trying to explain, but they didn't want to have it, it was all yes or no questions, to protect my wife, I would lie to the God Almighty. All right? I just would, because my first responsibility as a husband and as a father is to protect my wife and my children. And that's exactly what I was doing. They were going to indict her as a co-conspirator to the hush money payments because she and I co-signed on the same tax return, and that money was placed into her bank account at Capital One, which is where all the money went, because I was, for the second time, the victim of identity theft. And there was a guy running around, and I'm going to post his picture one of these days. I have it. From the bank. He's running around stealing the money. But just to go on, right, that I never told him to inflate the values of the financial statement. Thank goodness that the AG prosecutor on redirect asked me about that. And I stated, that's a true statement that I made to the Senate Permanent Select Committee. He never specifically told me to inflate the values on the financial statements. What he said, speaking like a mob boss, was, Michael, I'm not worth $5 billion, $5.5 billion. I'm actually probably not even worth 6. It's more like 7 or 8. And then directed me and Alan Weisselberg to go back to Alan's office and then come back after we figure it out. Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand what he wants you to do. Because we did come back with the change numbers, and those numbers were given by Alan to Weiser, Mazer, the accounting firm, and that's how the documents got, ultimately produced. So the point I'm trying to make in all of this, the man is unhinged. Captain Chaos is out of control. Mm-hmm. The antics that he's pulling will not stop. No fine, no gag order, no decorum, no decency will stop him. The only thing that you can do is to hold him accountable, very much like the insurrectionists on January 6th, some of whom have gotten as much as, 18 years? Yeah. He needs to be held accountable, and this Mandarin Mussolini must be locked up to shut him up before something bad happens to someone.
Again, I that's one of the things people say, what does accountability look like to you? Fuck, I don't know. Whatever it takes to keep said behavior from happening again. And, like you said, the fines aren't stopping him. The lawsuits aren't stopping him. Nothing's stopping him. So it's up to the Justice Department to include the judges, to determine a punishment that punishments are for deterrence, and is it working? I haven't seen any evidence of it.
Well, I haven't seen it either. But on that point, again, going back to standing my ground, in it, you're very clear that January 6th was 100% an attempt to overthrow the government.
Yeah.
An insurrection. But in all fairness, Harry, without folks like you protecting the Capitol, what do you think would have happened if the mob had actually caught up with Nancy Pelosi or Mike Pence? And what do you think would have happened if Trump had never called off the mob, even though it took him an hour and a half?
So let's think about it real quick. It was longer than that, but let's think about it. We got to take these individuals at their word. What were they there to do? Stop the steal. They thought the election was stolen, so they were stopping the certification of it. That was their objective. As far as Mike Pence, what were they chanting? They were chanting. Now, and this is the beauty of it. I'd say beauty, but the beauty of it is, it's not my opinion. Theirs are their words. Hang Mike Pence. They were wanting to shoot Nancy Pelosi in the brain. Now, those aren't my words. That's not my opinion. Those were their words. They said that was their mission, why they were there. So what else can we go on? At the time when it was going on, I wasn't thinking about stopping the insurrection. Hell, I didn't even heard that word, until afterwards, but I wasn't thinking about protecting democracy, but that's just part of my job. It's what we do. When you think about it, my job is to protect the members of Congress and keep them safe, which was and our coworkers. I wanted to go home at the end of the night. So that's what that day was about as far as the actions. Now, everything that happened afterwards and telling the story and setting the record straight about what happened is the important part. You can't just stop there. I couldn't, especially with these wild narratives running wild that it was a tour that got out of hand. That's not what happened.
Yeah, well, look, and go to the second part of that question as well, right? What do you think would have happened if Trump never called off the mob?
I don't even know. With all due respect, I'm not giving him any credit for stopping them. I'm giving credit to the men and women of other police departments and law enforcement who showed up that day. We had officers as far as New Jersey, and we had people there that showed up. The National Guard came and they helped us, and reinforcements showed up and the good guys won. So I'm not giving credit to Donald Trump for calling off those guys. I'm giving credit to law enforcement that day who fought their asses off and defended this country and protected each other. Yeah.
Well, look, a very good friend of mine who happens to be black turned around and said to me something that it was like a gut punch. Said to me, what do you think would have happened if transpose that entire mob and replace them with Black Lives Matter or people of color, brown, black, etc.? What do you think would have been the outcome of that, we'll call it insurrection?
Yeah.
And I sat there and I was like, oh my God.
Now, I'm glad that you asked that. So I'll answer because I like to be very specific about, incidents that happen. So a couple things. Black Lives Matter did come to the Capitol. You know what they didn't do? They didn't breach the Capitol. They didn't assault police officers. They stood out there with their message. They yelled at us. They cursed at us. They said their message. Now, this is just at the Capitol. I'm not speaking for around the country. I'm not talking about in New York or even at the White House. I'm not speaking.
No, I'm talking about also.
I'm just talking about just at the Capitol. That's what happened. Those individuals, they stayed behind the police line. They did not attack police officers. At the Capitol, that didn't happen. So, and so that's why I say at the Capitol, I work with a professional, top of the line officers there. They are some of the most professional, best of law enforcement that you will see. And I'm so proud to work with them. But I think that speaks to the professionalism of my coworkers. But I can't say, I don't like to use that hypothetical situation because Black Lives Matter did come to the Capitol and they didn't behave in the manner as like those rioters did.
The point I think my friend was trying to make with me.
Oh, no, I got it. I understand. But
And I want to be clear about this. If hypothetically Trump, who was still president at the time, saw a bunch of black people outside the Capitol storming into the Capitol, he would have called the National Guard. He would have called the SWAT team. He would have called Capitol Police. Every officer within a 50-mile radius would have been there with their guns, and there would have been bloodshed everywhere. But it's amazing because it goes right back to the whole point that I was making. The guy disappeared for hours, refused. And I'm with you on that. He just should not and does not deserve any credit for the end of the attack on the Capitol. And as far as setting the record straight, I hate to say it, 5 years later, I'm still trying to set the record straight on just something as simple as I never tax evaded. I have never not filed taxes. I've never requested an extension. Like most people, you ever request an extension?
I haven't.
I've never either. I've never requested it. Most people have. They ask
my
for
finances
extensions.
aren't complicated, though.
Mine aren't anymore. They were at the time. And I've never not paid taxes. I had a CPA doing it for me. Whatever he told me to pay is what I paid. Okay, is it an omission? I'll grant you that. But I will continue to fight to set this record straight. And I'm going to come to D.C. very soon because I'm pushing literally for FOIA to release the information, the documents, that 486,000 pages, so that we could figure out how it's possible that I could be the first political prisoner held by my own country because I refused to waive my First Amendment constitutional rights. So here I am every day fighting, and I hate to say it, the more I try to set the record straight, the more the maggot morons, you know who I'm talking about, those fuckers with the four teeth and the 3 brain cells, right? They fight you. Now this the whole Trump team and others, they have all of these bots on X, on the former Twitter and the Threads and Truth Social. They're just bots that they've destroyed the platform. But let me move on and ask you this then. How does it make you feel that and I'm going to quote this, architect of the insurrection, and I'm referring to MAGA Mike Johnson, is now the Speaker of the House?
Yeah. So I believe in democracy, even if it isn't the basis or the views that I want to be represented. I can't be a hypocrite. This is just me. I can't be a hypocrite and say that the Republicans have a majority, that they won in elections fair and square. Now, obviously, there's some gerrymandering issues and redistricting, and that's happening in the courts, so letting all that play out. But they won the election in a majority fair and square. See how easy that was? He fucking won an election fair and square. Fucking easy. Go figure. And they elected this individual to be the speaker for them. Now, people have been talking about his past and everything like that. It may be some things that we disagree with, but, maybe I'm just this optimistic guy and maybe it's just misplaced, or maybe it's because I have a job to do and I focus on my professional, but I just hope that it works for the American people. And this is the point that I make about patriotism. If it doesn't work, who holds them accountable? The voters do. The vote is the most powerful tool that us Americans have. And we don't utilize it. We complain. We use those 160 characters as our most powerful tool. No, get the hell out of here. Use your vote. And that's part of the reason why I wrote the book, is to educate people and to encourage people to participate in democracy. Participate in it. Just don't be a spectator. Be educated. And if you disagree, then hold them accountable at the ballot box. That's the only way democracy works, is people participating in it.
Yeah, well, that's true. So, it goes, so many things that's happening today, especially in this country, especially that revolve around Donald J. Trump, are head scratchers. I cannot figure it out no matter how many hours I stay awake.
Yeah.
And I vociferate over it over and over and over again. Trump's poll numbers are better than ever with black and Hispanic voters. Now, Harry, what the fuck? Seriously?
No, wait, I'm going to stop you there. We're asking the wrong questions. This isn't about Donald Trump anymore. What does that say about our country? Are we looking at this shit wrong? Or are people just not informed? The loudest, just because you're the loudest doesn't mean you're right. And that's where we have to fight back with this disinformation. You know what? I don't know how to do it, but I'll tell you one thing that Benny Thompson told me one day. And he told me that truth is the best disinfectant. But everybody needs to be spraying that damn bottle of disinfectant, though. Not just you testifying before the oversight committee, not just me testifying for the January 6th committee. Everybody. Can you imagine if everybody that had dirt on Donald Trump actually spoke up? But
do you think it would actually change anything? I mean, look,
everybody that had it, hell yeah. But when they just see you doing it, it's easy to call one or two people a traitor. He's calling Bill Barr and you a traitor and you're losers. But imagine if his whole entire cabinet did it, and then every people that knows those people that got dirt on actually did it. The fact that we could count the people on one hand, maybe two, that actually had the balls to come out against them, and you being one of them. It's not many of them. Why? Because they're afraid.
Well, of course they're afraid. They have every right to be afraid.
I agree. I'm not disparaging them for it.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, he lies to the American people every time he opens his mouth. The other day, the guy comes out with this bullshit claiming that polls are showing that his black support has quadrupled, even quintupled since his mugshot. Do you understand what he's actually saying here? It is, first of all, it's offensive. Second of all, it's a lie. He's basically making himself into, I'm one of you. Because we know that 1 out of every 10 black males in America have seen incarceration. That's based upon a Bureau of Prison statistic. So he's basically saying, I'm one of you. And as a result of him being one of you, let me tell you something. He ain't one of you. All right? He ain't one of me. He ain't one of anyone.
The grift that never stops grifting.
Ain't that a bitch? Right? I mean, he just doesn't stop. He lies about everything. And what does the guy do? He deflects. Everything is a deflection. It's not about me. I'm not the liar. You're the liar. Anybody that says anything negative, and then these crazy maggots do the same thing. They just keep regurgitating his bullshit. But let me move on and ask you this, because you're still active with the Capitol Police, correct?
Yeah, I still work there.
So I assume that you see members of Congress every single day.
Yeah.
How do the MAGA members treat you now? I mean, is there mutual respect? Or do some of these Congress members still hold a grudge against you?
One thing that's I'm very professional when I do my job, and I try to just leave it at that. I think of a moment where you think of something bigger than yourself. And like I said, I don't do anything for me. I do it because I enjoy serving my country, and that's the way I'm doing it in this capacity. And that's just where I leave it at, man. I don't get into all that stuff, and it's easy to, but I my eyes are set on the former president and the people that attacked us that day. But as far as the members of Congress, I think that just goes back to what I say. People need to be educated. People need to be informed, and the voters need to hold the members of Congress responsible. That's their job, not me. Like I said, I'm glad every morning to create a safe environment for them to work in. And that's all. That's what I focus on, man. Because if I let all the other noise, it would eat me up, and it would tear away at my soul. And I don't want that to be the life that I'm living. I don't want it to. So I shape my narrative to create a safe environment for members of Congress. That's it.
Yeah, Harry, I tell you, you're a better man than me, because I'm not so sure that if it was my job to protect people that put me in harm's way to the extent that they did, people like Marjorie Toilet Green or Josh Hawley or Ted Cruz and so on, I don't know if I could have, look, they didn't put me on January 6th in harm's way, and I still have no respect for any of them. So I give you a lot of credit for being able, to hold yourself to that standard of not just excellence, but supreme excellence, where you're able to put the blinders on and say, this is my job. It's kind of like the way FBI agents are, or Secret Service, when they have to protect someone like Trump. I'm sure that there's a group of them that can't stand him, that, he just makes them sick because he's constantly attacking Secret Service, FBI, law enforcement, DOJ.
Let me try to put it in a little bit of perspective for you. So that seat is going to need protection no matter who occupies it. No matter who occupies it, whether it's somebody that I like, whether it's somebody that I dislike. So you got to think of the bigger picture. That seat is what represents democracy. And like I said, 100 years from now, that seat is still going to be there if I do my job. And if my coworkers continue to do their job like we did on January 6th and every day before and every day after. If we continue to do our job, that seat is going to exist and have the opportunity to change ownership. The same way with the presidency. Like, the peaceful transfer of power existed, you said 44 presidents. We're this close to not having it again, Like, we got to look at the bigger picture. And like I said, we just occupy this earth and this country and this democracy for a short period of time. And we got to leave it better than what we found it, man. But we're leaving it worse. We're leaving it worse. The way we're going, we're not doing a good job, but we can do better. And like I say, I don't know where this optimism and this hope comes from, but I don't know. I don't know where it comes from. Maybe that's all we have. It's just something to keep me going, something to make me keep from going crazy. I believe in the goodness of this country. So,
well, I would like to, but I'm having a hard time. I did want to ask you. Yeah, you too, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you this. What about your colleagues, people like Caroline Edwards, who also endured the attack on January 6th? How are they doing now? Is there any going back to normal after an event like that? Do you guys ever just sit around, in like the Capitol, the deli that everybody sits inside there, the food court inside the Congress? You ever just sit around and turn around and reminisce about how fucked up that day was and how dangerous it was, and how dangerous it is every single day, almost fearing that this shit could happen again tomorrow?
Yeah, I love that you mentioned Carolyn, because I think the world of her, and
she deserves it.
What a fantastic woman, what a fantastic officer, what a fantastic patriot that she is, and God love her for it. But in certain circles, you do, like, the enjoyment, maybe for me and a lot of other people that I've talked to, has been taken away from this job. And it's not like it used to be. It used to be, you look forward to coming to work, you used to be happy. But I think that's just part of the trauma from January 6th that still exists. You go to work in a crime scene every damn day. You go to work in a crime scene, you got to work there. Like, shit, if a murder happens in somebody's house or whatever, they're probably moving out that house and never lived there. If something bad happens, we don't have that luxury. But I think a lot of people are just, I don't know. you could tell people are frustrated. My friends that I've talked to are close. We don't really talk about it that much, but we talk about the things that cause it and the division in this country and how depressed or sad that it makes us. But the police aspect of it, no, we don't really talk about it. We talk about it as concerned American citizens, you know, and it's the outlook. It kind of sucks sometimes, but I'll keep showing up for those individuals, those coworkers, because that's what it's all about.
On that one. Now, you talk in your book about the healing power of telling the truth. And rest assured, I know exactly what you're referring to when you were talking about that. And I'm sure that it helps others. It helps other people when they hear you tell your story. It's kind of like why I wrote the second book too, Revenge, because I believe that it helps to open up people's eyes. My question though to you is, has it helped you to heal? Did you find writing the book cathartic?
It was very cathartic, but it also, I addressed a lot of issues that exist in this country that have existed for a long period of time. And talking about it doesn't make me happy, but it fuels me to know that I inspired one person or two people. I'm going to tell my truth regardless. I'm going to tell my story because it makes me feel good. And along that process, if one or two people is inspired by something that I said or did, and they can do something different, it's fucking worth it, man. Yeah, but yeah, it definitely brought about some healing, but it also opened up some wounds that, you know, like this country's been like this for a long time, and you think about it, it's sad.
Yes, Ed is right. You know, like I said before, you're a better man than me. I don't want to inspire one person or two people. It's like also why I have the other podcast, Political Beatdown. My goal is to take my listeners from Mea Culpa, incorporate them into my listeners of Political Beatdown, and I don't want one or two. I want millions. I want to change the minds of millions of people. I want to open the minds and the eyes and the ears of millions of people.
Of course.
To a man who I truly believe is the greatest danger to American democracy that exists for the last 100 years. And I say that as someone who sat with him day in and day out for over a decade, shoulder to shoulder. He is truly the most dangerous person right now in this country as it relates especially to democracy.
I agree. But it's not just him, though. At this moment, he is. But I talk in my book about if Donald Trump goes to jail, how will I feel? I'll celebrate for a moment, but then I'll go back to realize the idea that he brought to the forefront, it doesn't go away just because he goes to jail. In fact, it might become stronger. MAGA doesn't go away when Donald Trump goes to jail. If Donald Trump, it doesn't. In fact, like I said, it may embolden somebody even more, you know, to become somebody to redeem him, his redeemer, or whatever. I don't know, but it's scary, man. But we got to keep fighting. We can't just get, what is the other alternative? Just give up? I don't know, man. I can't do that. And I hope and pray that so many other people are ready to fight. And let me clarify, because Rudy Giuliani talking about fight like hell and Donald Trump go down and fight. I don't mean it in a physical sense. Let me make that clear, because clearly they didn't make that distinction. But it's important to fight for your country at the ballot box by getting in
Amen.
Good trouble, you know? So,
Yep.
You know.
Yep. I say that all the time, that the only way to beat MAGA ideology is you vote these assholes out of office. That's it. And then push them back into the hole that they fell out of or that they crawled out of. That's the only way to do it. But I want to ask you something else, because it just popped into my head, right? With the book, you're obviously doing a lot of road promotion of the book and so on. What are you seeing out there? Do you think as a country that we're more divided today than ever in our lifetimes? And do you think that Americans are still, for the most part, are still good people?
I think that we are more similar than we are divided. I think that the divisiveness is just the loud part. You know, I do believe majority of Americans are good individuals. They're good people. I believe that in the bottom of my heart. The problem is the loud ones, like you said, the trolls and they represent the smallest population. They're the loudest, which is why we keep focusing on them. But I've learned, and I'm learning, that focusing on the individuals that are like-minded like you, and I'm not talking about an echo chamber, but like-minded as far as like decency. Those are individuals that I will talk to no matter what issues we agree on, but just have the decency to respect your fellow man. Those are the individuals that I focus on, that I want to talk to. Because no matter what, man, let me tell you something. When my book, when it hit Amazon, within an hour, there was already a review on it of 1 star. Talking about liar, don't believe nothing. Like, you didn't even have an opportunity to read it. There's no way you read my book that fast. So I will talk to with like-minded, because something people, it don't matter what you say. It don't matter what you show them. Their head is in the sand and no, that's it. But like-minded, decent individuals, like-minded with the decency effect. Like I said, not all beliefs, you know. I've had conversations with pro-choice and what's the opposite of pro-choice? The anti-abortion people. I've talked with people all the time that are decent individuals, and you try to. That's how you reach people. You have conversations, you know.
I always say to the pro-lifers, you know, I'm all for you. Don't get me wrong. I don't give a flying shit if you have 30 children. I really don't give a fuck. It means nothing to me. When those kids get sick, when they're crying at night, you know, that's on you. Has no bearing on my life whatsoever. But your theocratic ideology on life, whether it is predicated on, you know, Judeo-Christian belief or just evangelical Christian ideology, Southern white Christian coalition beliefs, that's all good for you. I wish you the best in whatever you want, but stay the fuck out of my business. It has nothing to do with you, right? Let the woman decide. If the woman's decision is pro-life, God bless her. I wish her and her children health, happiness, success, love, joy, as we like to say in Jewish, nachas, from your children and, God willing, grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I wish you all the best. But if my belief is a woman should have the right to choose, and that if her choice is to terminate that child or that fetus, I should say, that's her decision. You be you and let me be me. So I don't understand this where you think, like in The Handmaid's Tale, as a commander, you have the right to turn around and to take a woman's right to choose away from them. It's more than just about the fetus. It's more than just about the pregnancy. There's so much more here at stake.
I agree, but I think we could just be simplified it and just say it's none of our business.
Amen.
That's the simple part. It's none of my business what anybody chooses to do with their body. Period.
Exactly, whichever way that you want to go. So look, you and I, we engage in conversation, obviously outside of the podcast, and all that, and so on. And you know that I happen to be a big fan of the police.
Yeah.
What, in your opinion, right now, is the state of policing in America today? I mean, are there still good, honest cops who come to the job each and every day to serve and protect?
And because
I would agree with you with that. But because it's so tough to be a police officer today? Who is it that's drawn to the field? Because I see and I hear every day on social media, on postings and so on, with all of the stuff that was going on in terms of the way police officers are reacting. They're very fast to pull the gun, especially if it's on a young black male and so on. This is a real problem in America too. First of all, the fact that there's so many guns in America and everybody today thinks that they're in the wild, wild west. My real question is, being that it's really tough to be an officer today, who is it that you see are getting drawn to the field?
Yeah, so the state of policing, and I got to make it clear that majority of the police officers you interact on a day-to-day basis are there to serve, and they love their job and they're doing it for the right reason. Majority of them. The problem is, one fuck up, so to speak, is too many. And that may be unrealistic because we're humans and we make mistakes. But when you're dealing with life, it's crazy because we're humans. Police officers aren't robots, and humans make mistakes. But willful mistake making is, I think, what's problematic. People that are just out there with no regard, and they think that they're above the law. I mean, hell, it happened with the presidency. Why wouldn't that happen in policing? So I think that's where we run into the issue. And, wanting to hold people accountable, not necessarily for mistakes. And yeah, mistakes, you have to be accountable for mistakes, but there's a level of, like you said, willful intent, like you talk about with law and everything like that. Willfully, those are a lot of the key words that come down when you're talking about applying sentences and charges. Like, it's all about willful intent. So yeah, it's still that there still need to be change because, like I said, one mistake when you're dealing with life is too many. And I'm not even a mistake. I said I'm not blaming an officer because we're humans, we make mistakes. The willful ones is where I will, without a doubt, hold somebody accountable in my eyes for it. But on the flip side, society doesn't make it easy for police officers to be police officers, especially in this climate where we're looked at as this enemy and everything like that. We need, I hate the thin blue line thing, right? It's a thin blue line that holds it up. Why isn't that line thick? Why? We should have all the support of everybody in the world, and we should strive for that. Like these communities, these tight-knit communities that you hear about and you see in these small towns and everything. That's what you want. That's what you need. And I think maybe this is a crap dream or a crap shoot or a pipe dream, whatever the fucking term is. But you just want for so much, you want it to be this tight-knit communities that I guess really don't exist because it goes back to what you were saying earlier, this divide in this country. And it's not just liberals and conservatives, it's people that like the police and don't like the police. I got to hold society accountable a little bit too for it. Even though cops, we sign up to serve the communities. Sometimes it ain't easy to serve people that don't want to be served, I guess.
And the reason I bring up that question, Harry, is because part of your mission now is actually to reform policing. And it reminds me so much of that movie American Gangster with Richie Robbins, right?
Yes.
Do cops resent you for trying to change the system, or do they welcome the change? It's very hard because you're talking about a system that has existed for a very long period of time. And I'm with you when I say I have nothing but the utmost of respect for, the men and women of blue. I do. When I see them walking in the street here in New York City, I will always stop and thank them for their service. I did it when I was there at the courthouse. They took great care of me, incredible care. I truly appreciate the job that they have to do. I don't think I could do it. In fact, I know for a fact that I would not be able to do it. My question to you, You're trying to change the system. Do they welcome it?
I don't necessarily know if it's about changing the system, man. I think it's just as simple as changing the person. You got to change the people. I tell you, I look at it when I try to train new officers that come on. I look at these, I call the 3 C's. And if you possess these 3 C's, you can be a good police officer. Confidence, courage, and this one escapes people. It's compassion. Need compassion, because we're there to help people. And if you lack compassion, then how can you truly help somebody? I think that's one of the things. We work with a bunch of brave and people. People are very courageous, confident individuals. But that compassion, I think, escapes a lot of us. And once compassion goes along with empathy, and I think once we possess that, it's easier to see the flaws and the humanity in people. And I think it just comes down, and like I said, maybe this is me just being this optimistic, hopeful person, but I think it just comes down to the person that you hire, that the person that signs up for the job. Compassion. And I think that's just lacking, even not just in police force, that's just in the world, man. People don't care about each other.
Well, let me ask you this then, because I have really just 2 quick questions for you.
All right.
The hour goes by quick here on Mea Culpa.
Yeah, it does.
You and I have had conversation, as I had stated before, in the past. We're both big fans of the late civil rights leader, John Lewis, as well as Elijah Cummings, and what they termed good trouble. What do you think that these 2 leaders would say about the state of civil rights movement in America today?
I am encouraged by the people that do get in good trouble. Especially, man, I'll tell you who I'm really impressed by. The young kid, Gen Z, I think it is, that then they are making their voices known. They're loud, and they're letting people know that we exist. Not only do we exist, but we have a say. And I love that. I love that they're being engaged and getting involved and getting in good trouble. But it would just be encouraging. We need it more now than ever. Like, people are fighting literally for their right to exist. When you talk about some of the LGBTQ people, they're fighting for their right to exist. What's happening in Israel and Palestine, I'm not getting into that, but people are fighting for their right to exist. And we need it more now than ever, than the people for stand up for what is right. And I think that they would just be calling for more. That's what we need. We need more. I liken it to a game of tug of war, and you got both sides, and in the middle is the end of democracy, the end of your rights. And the people on the right are pulling. The good guys are over here just pulling, and whoever falls in that hole, we just need more good guys on the back of that rope to help us continue to pull and fight. And once we continue to keep fighting, we're eventually going to pull them down that hole. And hopefully that's how they don't exist anymore. Just more good people, just drown them out.
Exactly what we need. So look, my final question to you, Harry. You now have developed a pretty huge platform, and you actually have very strong political perspectives. There a possibility that you're going to run for office in the future? I've heard that. And you know that I'm contemplating a congressional run myself. I'm just waiting for my wife to give me the okay on it, and then I'm ready to go. I'm going after Jerry Nadler's seat here in Manhattan. Yeah. And I'll tell you, I'm going to give him a run for his money. He's got a lot of issues. But what about you? Possible run? Because that would be great. You and I, freshman congressman.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man. I love the idea of it. Why? Because I revel in the idea of public service. And what better way to serve your country than to be a spokesperson, a representative of the community that you live in. But right now, it's just an idea. I'll consider it. But it's a huge responsibility too. It's a huge undertaking. and a decision I'm not prepared to make at the moment. But it's not out of the realm of possibility that I would consider it.
Well, think about it, because then you and I could sit next to each other in the back. We could be making fun of everybody and shit, and I'll at least have you to have my back, right? As I sit there, and like when I was in my fraternity at American University, I was known for taking the metal chairs and just throwing them, right? Or like at the dais
Jesus
with the
Christ,
brothers
dude.
in there. I used to just take those fold-up metal chairs, me and my buddy Seth, and we used to just start winging them, right? When they would start talking stupid shit and everything, because I have no patience for stupid shit. And there's so much of that going on right now, from the Jim Jordans all the way, to the George Santos. But Harry, let me thank you, my friend, for being Harry. Let me thank you, man, for your excellence, for being you, and for everything. Congrats on the book.
Thanks,
it's a
bro.
Great read. I strongly recommend it, and I really do truly look forward to seeing you when I get down to DC very soon.
All right, man. Can't wait, bro.
I will see you soon, my friend.
Thanks for having me, man. Talk to you soon, buddy.
You got it.